Who don't step in the game? You know who it is. I'll enable chat here in a second. And we're going to talk. We're going to talk about some things, some infernal thought process. So I mentioned in a podcast I was on last Sunday that I wouldn't be addressing these things directly, but due to the requests of several individuals that have come to me, I'm going to shed some light on some things, and the title of the video is apt. So the last 3 weeks have been quite interesting. A lot of people's opinions regarding the aftermath of the reveal of the Nintendo Switch have been polarizing, to put it lightly. From people being extremely excited, saying Nintendo's back and things like that, to some even damning it to a worser fate than the Wii U with regards to sales, because it isn't doing some of the things that they expected it to do. At first. And the reason why I say at first is a lot of the things that were negatively said about Nintendo Switch were kind of like a lot of the negative things that were said about Wii U at first. They're misconceptions, or there isn't enough information to draw any parallels closer to making that assumption in reality. And there are so many YouTubers, bloggers, members of the press, even in various websites out there that have taken information from Nintendo, or not even just made up their own stuff and come up with all kind of a lot of wild explanations as to why they think things will be on a negative slant more so than a positive one. And of course, they all deem to be tied closely to personal interests, more so than objectively looking at the picture and about the company being profitable. No, no, no. Instead, dear viewers and very vocal YouTubers, you want them to do what you want them to do, and you want them to do certain things just like other companies do, as if they all operate the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my attention to a couple of things from the Forbes article. Well, they're pick your poison. I think there are close to 3 of those different articles talking about concerns about the Nintendo Switch. One of those being the price, which I find oddly, how can I say this, hypocritical. And I say hypocritical because I don't remember anywhere in 2013 where someone complained that the cost of 2 Xbox Ones to play on multiple TVs in your house at the same time without moving cables and stuff cost you $1,000, because at that time the Xbox One was $500. There was no other SKU to get other than the one with the Kinect. I don't remember anybody saying the same thing about the PlayStation 4. But for some reason, when Nintendo decides to make a solution by having the dock where you can buy multiple docks so that system can be at every TV in your house, and it's not even 1/3 of the price, there's a problem. And yes, I understand maybe not everyone has $90, but apparently everybody has $120 to buy an Xbox One Elite controller, or 2 PlayStation 4 controllers, or 2 Xbox One controllers. Then they complain that it costs an additional $80 so you can have 4 controllers, not 2, 4 controllers to play on Nintendo Switch. nobody's been to a store lately, apparently. But that same old PlayStation 4 controller, similar to the DualShock 3 before it, is $60 damn dollars. The same controller that has less capabilities than the Wii U gamepad is $60. A touch bar that isn't that sensitive, rumble features that apparently do not compare to what is happening in the Nintendo, both the Nintendo Pro controller and the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. There's a complaint because the Pro controller costs $70 more and the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons are $20 more. The Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons give you 2 players for the same, well, actually for $40 less than it would for you to get 2 players out of a PlayStation 4, or you're paying an additional $60 to the $400 that the PlayStation 4 originally cost. So $460 for 2 players on the PlayStation 4 at launch, and you pay $300 for 2 players on the Nintendo Switch at launch. Do the math. Now, I heard other things about saying, the battery life of the charging dock doesn't come with the system. The system itself charges the Joy-Cons. The system itself doesn't last longer than 6 hours. The Joy-Cons themselves last 20 hours. So why again do you need to have this charging thing inside the box? Other than what, bragging rights, I guess. You want to recharge the Joy-Cons when you're on the go to play the Nintendo Switch that's already been dead approximately 14 hours ago. That makes no sense. There's no way to really even extrapolate that as being logical. There's no way. Enough on the price thing. We'll just table that because that's just absurd. I don't even know why that's been an ongoing issue, and there's been argument back and forth for almost 2 weeks at this point. I'll tell you what, I'll stay on price again, because one of the funniest things that happened today which was ideally karma in itself. So today, apparently, in an earnings report, Mr. Kimishima, the CEO of Nintendo of Japan, just announced, or that he's in the talks of thinking that the Nintendo Switch online service will be anywhere between $15 to $30 annually as far as their subscription service goes, which is anywhere between 25% to 50% of the price of PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, which I find ironic because just a week ago, or just 2 weeks ago, people were crying from the hilltops and being upset and saying, why am I getting this quote unquote lackluster online service for the same $60 I pay for a superior service on PlayStation Network and Xbox Live? And I find that odd because, one, we have no idea what this Nintendo online service is going to be, and 2, it's free before it starts. That's interesting to me, and this is kind of why I did this live segment here. I'm gonna take a look at the chat over here and see if there's anybody that has decided to become active here, and see if I can get a little bit of feedback here. So give me just a second. Now, that little interesting thing there, that pretty much closed the loop on any of the price issues, as far as I'm concerned. And there's some little talk about the comparisons as far as free games going back and forth. I'm not really into that show, and there are 2 completely different concepts. One is Nintendo is enticing you to buy the game outright, and Microsoft and Sony they don't care, and they're just like, here, we worked the deal out with this publisher where it's free for this month or whatever, and whoever doesn't get it, they're screwed or whatever. So, and people don't play those games that long anyway. Nintendo's actually adding new things to older games. So they're adding online features to these older games, thus the cost. And thus the reason why they want it to only be for a month, so people would actually pay money for it because they did all the extra work to make these older games online. I mean, it just kind of makes sense. You would want to do that. The games that are coming out for Xbox Live and PlayStation Network aren't being reverse engineered like that. None of that work is being done to games that originally were coded in 1986 and newer than that. To me, I just think that's crazy that there's a direct comparison between basically an indie game studio or the second party games the third party games that come out from the AA publishers, which are usually the type of games that end up on being the free title of the month for Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. Why are those being directly compared to retro games that you're getting for free that have added a feature that never existed? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to take a look here and attempt to get some things going. Now, I got a couple things going in chat here, so I'll see if I can pop it out. I don't know if it'll let me, but I'll see. It doesn't appear that I'll be able to now. It's being weird. So greetings everyone, by the way. Everybody in the chat, I see you. So, but yeah, I was compelled to do this by a couple of people on Twitter and YouTube. So I just don't get it. Why does everyone say the Elite controller costs $120? Isn't it $150? I think there were two variations. One was $120 and another was $150, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I believe there was a collector's edition or something to that effect that was $150, and then they dropped the price temporarily or permanently. So, and yes, I did see the new commercials, the Super Bowl commercials for Nintendo Switch, and I made a comment on Google Plus earlier today, and I hope everybody paid attention to it. I reposted both the North American and the UK commercials. The UK commercial aired today on YouTube, and the original US reveal aired back in October when they revealed the Nintendo Switch for the US or whatever. The choice of music, and if you listen to the lyrics in the background, it's almost as if Nintendo is trying to educate you guys as far as what their philosophy is. And everyone seems to want to have this doctrine, this list that Nintendo must follow for you guys to fall in love with them again. And they really don't care. They don't give two shits, really. So what they're saying is they're going to be themselves. You be yourself. Quit pretending to not like their games and get with the program. Act like gaming is supposed to be fun and not something that you use to brag to your friends because social inequities are a bit of a problem for some people. They, for whatever reason, if they say they like something and they get odd stares, they all of a sudden don't like that thing and they grow out of it. I just don't get it. None of this ever happens in film. None of this ever happens in any of the other non-electronic games that you grew up with over the years. Nobody is going to you and saying, "Hey, stop playing chess. That's kiddie because you did that as a child. Stop playing checkers. That's kiddie because you did that as a child. Stop playing Uno because you did that as a child." Nobody does that. People are cheering it on. They're like, "Okay, all right, we're playing Uno. Let's go." I mean, it was to the point where it was an Xbox Live game with the vision camera or whatever, and people were trolling and having fun with that. A childhood game. So I'm kind of getting away from the topic here because I'm kind of back and forth with the chat. But so the other topic that I want to talk about as I gather all my screens together, excuse me, I got like 4 screens going on right now. I talked about the battery life already, which was part of the price, which is kind of interesting to me. Then there was the entire storage. And once again, people they pick and choose when they want Nintendo to be like other companies and when they don't. So you say Nintendo should be like other companies in other areas. And then when they're different, or when you know that they're different, you still try to treat them like they're the same as those other two. You complain about the differences that they have. Oh, well, they should have online because they should do this or whatever. Nobody complained and said, hey, Nintendo's games are too small. They should make them bloated and full of 20 gig patches like the other two consoles are. Nobody's saying that, but everybody knows those games are smaller. Everybody knows that 32 gigs on your Wii U can give you 30 plus games. Even more if you don't go all digital or somewhat digital. If you have a large virtual console library, if you have a large indie library, 32 gigs get you a lot. I had a 1 terabyte drive hooked to this Wii U, and I think I've used 200 gigs, and the majority of that was used for 3 retail games that were pretty big, that were third party. The other 50 gigs or so were finally eclipsed the 32 gigs on there. One of them was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which was close to, I think it was 20 by itself. Other than that, all the other indie games and the other titles, virtual console titles that I had on this system fit well into the 32 gigs. So I had no problem with that. I did not have to move over to that drive until the first part of 2016. So after I had already installed Xenoblade Chronicles, after I had already installed a couple of other indie titles, then I needed to use external storage. Like I had to use external storage. And I have well over 50, maybe 60 games on that drive at this point, to include saves and all the other kind of stuff. And I haven't even put a dent in a 1 terabyte drive. But NBA 2K16 was 90 gigs alone after the DLC on my PlayStation 4. And to me, it's just odd that we're deciding to go, oh, well, Nintendo is different here and I don't like it. But this other thing, Nintendo is different at, oh, we have no idea that happens. We have no idea that their games are smaller. So let's complain about the 32 gigs because they're small. The 32 gigs, not only because the games are smaller, a lot of the indie games don't use that much storage. A lot of the second party games, and obviously other people that partner with Nintendo, if they decide to make games that use compression the way that they use compression, their games will be smaller as well. Only the biggest AAA third party games will take up that much storage. And even then, Nintendo Switch does the same thing that the Wii U did, being alone in its generation. You can play games directly off the media. You don't have to worry about installing anything. I say again, you can play games directly off the media. You don't have to worry about installing anything. Even if you're not a digital only gamer, you are on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. Why? Because every game must be installed because the disk drives are too damn slow. That's just factual. The drive speed on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One is far slower. So they have to cache everything on the hard drive to get the bandwidth needed to go directly into memory. Obviously, Nintendo likes chopping up their memory hierarchy. So literally the disk drive is the slowest thing, the slowest bus, and it feeds directly into the memory. The memory is already waiting for it, and they do things one frame at a time, so you don't have to worry about your having to install a game. Yeah, there's additional things you can install for games like Xenoblade Chronicles, but that only adds to the experience. It's not necessary. I run my entire Xenoblade Chronicles game off the disc. I got the additional things, but I didn't download the entire game. So Nintendo Switch is going to be that same console. Those big AAA third-party games can go on the rumored 16 gig cartridge, or they could decide to compress it on that 16 gig cartridge, or they can buy more memory modules, or Nintendo sells them another cartridge at a higher price, I guess, under the development side. Which, if it is a SanDisk device, which I think it is, because that's the same manufacturer for the 3DS, those cartridges are not really expensive. It's the same flash storage that's been used for decades now, and that type of eMMC memory is pretty cheap per sale. So I don't think you would spend too much money getting a 100 gig cartridge, say for a developer. I don't think it would be anywhere more than a couple of bucks a cart. And then they make their money, they're able to make their profit, Nintendo's able to make their profit and go from there. Speaking of which, this console will be sold at a profit without a game, which is something that the Wii U was not able to do until probably very recently. So I don't think the storage is going to be an issue. And, of course, there's that thing that there are two very obvious USB ports on the side of the Nintendo Switch dock. I wonder what those could be used for. Also, there's the SDXC port underneath the kickstand that will allow you to expand storage and things of that nature. So there you go. Don't really understand where that complaint came from. Don't know why people are complaining, but obviously people are trying to be tech heads without actually being a tech head and understanding what's happening under the hood. So I would advise the people that want to be tech backseat drivers to stay in the trunk and open your mouth after you read a book or two and come back to me. So I just don't understand where all these complaints came from. We have people wildly speculating about Nintendo Switch Online, saying that it's locked to the app for the mobile device that they're providing as an additional service to help you create lobbies and things like that. Somehow, somewhere, somebody, I won't say names, Colin Moriarty, that decided to say that the console is forcing you to use an app, and Reggie Fils-Aimé or nobody else in Nintendo has ever said that that was the case. They just said that they will talk about it in a future development, and that they will use the app to help facilitate you in getting that. Never mind the fact that right after this whole kerfuffle and so many people putting out ads and complaints talking That's very awesome. So if you can still see me, hopefully. Looks like you can still see me. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know where I left off. I think I was talking about probably the power. I think that's what I was talking about there. But the issues that I have with regard to that are, what exactly is the reason that you want quote unquote power? Now I've heard Rich of Review Tech USA and certain individuals that appear on Nintendo podcasts and then go on PlayStation podcasts and act completely different. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude, you're a fraud. Like, there's no reason for you to be doing that. But those complaints are about, well, if they don't have the power, they don't get third party support. The way I see it is, I see insert PR guy here that says Wii and Wii U don't fit into our wheelhouse. And then what we're going to do is, in the future, we're going to port the game we're working on to the 3DS, or we're going to port it to the iPhone. Sounds to me like power really isn't the issue. It's install base and tools. So if the tools issue has been addressed, which from the likes of it, it appears to be that way, given support for, say, Unreal Engine 4 and the new version of Unity, then perhaps that's been addressed. So the quote unquote technical wheelhouse issue has been resolved. And if it's easy to make games on Nintendo Switch, far easier than it was for Wii U, then it doesn't really matter what's under the hood. And there are a lot of people that are trying to lowball as much as possible, just like they were lowballing Wii U, is with regard to what the theoreticals are under the hood, which don't really matter because they never really matter on the other systems, because no game ever uses all the quote unquote teraflops that they say they have theoretically in a real game. So when developers say, oh, well, we can't get our vision, whatever, if your vision is that grand, why do you still have invisible walls, bugs, glitches, invisible faces, and falling through surfaces you're supposed to be able to stand on? I'm sorry. I think that those bugs could have worked on the Wii. They could have worked on the NES if you just want that kind of craziness to happen. So if you're going to talk about having the canvas to make a really great game, when you have that canvas, make a really great game, a playable one that isn't broken. And there are several AAA third-party games that I could list right now, but I think I'll leave that alone. The power issue, I just don't really, there's no legitimate excuse to go on this banter about, oh, it should be on par with, nobody's playing golf. On par is probably about the worst analogy I've seen with regards to this type of stuff. Technology is seen in multiple ways, i.e. the wireless technology, which is obviously more advanced than what's in both the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. We're talking up to a gigabit of bandwidth here, bi-directional. But nobody wants to talk about that being advanced. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that you're taking a console game with you and it doesn't require a power brick to take with you everywhere. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about the advances in Rumble or any of the other aforementioned features that Nintendo has decided to innovate on over the years. It just, it's funny to me how we can go down the spec list and talk about, oh, well, it has a DVD drive and the Wii doesn't have a DVD drive. And I'm like, well, why is the Xbox still the only platform that does not use Bluetooth, which is a standard that came out in 2000? I know I've talked about that before. I'm preaching to the choir for most of my subscribers, but this is just really something that it needs to be said. Like, if you're going to talk about tech, if you're going to talk about specs, then I mean, they should be talked about all the way. And that's just one of the things that personally I feel that people are hypocrites, and they use pieces and parts of their argument when they want to. They want to talk about specs, but they don't want to talk about all of them. They only want to talk about the GPU and the CPU. They don't want to talk about the memory hierarchy and what the bandwidth is and what the limits are. They don't want to talk about what is the TDP of all these parts and who has the most efficient design, who gives you more performance per watt. That was obviously Wii U for 8th generation, and looks like it's going to be Nintendo Switch for 9th generation. You can't just take bits and pieces or just take what you hear from the press, because these guys know nothing about fucking tech. Let me tell you right now, they have no idea. You can't take their information and quote them and then start trying to talk and educate other people, specifically about technology, because if you don't have a technology background, but you're leaning on a website which by far exists only for press and clicks, they are not a technology company. The only thing technical about them is that they have a web database, and they're database guys that do not write articles and do not talk to people and don't go on podcasts. They're too busy coding the database for their back end for their website. We should not be using them as sources ever, especially not Forbes.com. And I would say pretty much IGN as a whole. There may be one or two people maybe know what they're talking about there, but for the majority, if you listen to anybody there, they're basically taking buzzwords, flipping them in the air, listen to what a developer says, flipping those in the air, mixing them together, and they're throwing them on the wall to see if the shit sticks. Then they do things like go on a podcast and say, but we know the Wii U isn't that powerful, right? No, you don't. You have no clue. So I'm looking in here. Well, somebody mentioned something about the Falcons lose to the Patriots. We'll see. We'll see about that. Rise up, by the way, all my people on Twitter. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the other comments here. I know the stream cut off. Somebody wants me to debate somebody. If they want to come in, great. I don't care. I'll chop them all up. I really don't really care. So thank you, Gloria Redmond. Yeah. So other issues. The other issues are the headlines, like I was talking about before. The entire, I'm trying to figure out a better way to phrase this. The process of receiving information and receiving all the information. I know Mr. T made a video, and at the end of that video, he provided a clip of Denzel Washington talking about the media in general and the press, and one of the famous quotes is now famous now because it's been memed across social media now at this point, where he says pretty much all information is misinformation, and if you don't get the misinformation, you get no information. So, and then he charged the press to do their duty and seek the truth rather than just put it out there and be first. And I have to say, without a doubt, the gaming press at large is all about click, click, click. Let's get the article together as quickly as possible. ooh, he said something notable. Let's throw it out there. It doesn't matter how we curve it or add a slant to it. Get it out there. It's almost as if the term editor or editor in chief means nothing. There are journalistic integrity codes that have existed for decades now. And that's not just for video games, that's for Associated Press at large, where your job is to seek the truth. Yet these gaming press syndicates actively avoid the truth to the point of not asking for direct information about Nintendo Switch and voice chat, but leading the question with, even though I don't even think they even asked this directly to Reggie, but this is how they worded it in the article. When asked about the smartphone app locking voice chat into just a smartphone, Reggie stated, "Come on, man. Where's the quote where you got the information that said the voice chat is locked to an app? At what point was that said? And who said it?" Oh, of course, IGN isn't going to tell you that. Why would they? There's no reason for them to. They already got you clicking. So you're there. And then you read it. And when you read it, you're really not reading it. You're reading words that have already justified what was in the headline. And the headline says that Nintendo Switch will use an app for voice chat. It's the only way you could do it. At no point did the average person read the article and see that there was no such quote from the person that they interviewed. So the information didn't come from Reggie Fils-Aimé at all. It came from IGN. They took a quote and then added their own information to it and used the quote to justify the information that they came up and they surmised. The quote unquote alternative facts. Working in motion for you right there. So this has misled so many people in comment sections. I think I've gone on a tirade of responding to people. And that is just so interesting to me. So why do people fall for this? Why are they so susceptible? But they will call you stupid if you say, "Hey, I love Nintendo games." They question your intelligence. And if they're going to question your intelligence, who are they to question it if they can't read a piece of information and know that there's no source? That's English 101. If you've ever written a term paper before, if you've ever written any type of research document, you must cite everything that you're claiming to be true in your document. That doesn't just end in high school. People go to college and get jobs for this. And apparently, they end up working for IGN and forget all about it. And obviously, it's not just IGN. I'm looking at Forbes.com right now, and it's just as bad. It's just as bad. The point where in an article by the press, the gaming press at large, and they say absolute things like the Nintendo Switch is underpowered without a single shred of evidence or a quote from anyone to support it. It's just in the article as if it is a concrete fact. Never have I ever seen such blatant. Obviously, it's happening in other areas in politics right now, but 20 years ago, it wasn't this way. 20 years ago, it wasn't. And obviously, I'm telling at least a bit of my age here, but at one point in time, game reviewers or game companies were so starved for information, they would do whatever they could. They would go on their own dime. They would take road trips to go directly to a studio and interview them and get as much information from them as possible. They will post the entire interview. If you notice, many sites don't post the entire interview anymore. And if they do, it's buried. You have to go find it. There used to be long transcripts of interviews going back and forth, and you decipher the information and make your own assumptions from there. You draw your own conclusions from the back and forth between the question and the answer from the people that actually have the information. That never happens anymore. Now we get articles like Forbes.com and IGN.com saying, we think this about this Nintendo hardware. We think this about Xbox. We think this about PlayStation. They'll lace a quote in there that has nothing to do with what the main part of the article is. And you guys, and by you guys, I mean vocal YouTubers out there, eat it right up. Post a video about it. Get 1,500 views or whatever. And then you move on to the next headline, which you also misread and you choose to use as loaded information. I have yet to see somebody quote Reggie Fils-Aimé say that Nintendo Switch's voice chat is locked to an app. I have yet to hear anybody from Nintendo talk about the internal specifications of Nintendo Switch or Wii U for that matter, or Wii for that matter, to determine what the hardware specifications are. And yes, there were teardowns and some people did some die shots and stuff like that. And looking at a die shot of completely custom hardware leads you nowhere. What are you going to compare it to that's off the shelf actively? Nothing, because it looks like nothing. So what solution do you come up with? Oh, I guess those are shader blocks, and I guess this is 1024 wide, so therefore the bandwidth is this. That's a pretty smart and astute way of getting some results there. But because they're Digital Foundry or Reddit or anonymous people on Reddit or anonymous people on NeoGAF, okay, great. We'll just go with that. You know, seeing custom designs like that around quite a bit, maybe a decade or so ago, I'm starting to understand why Nintendo is hilarious, because people are doing the whole Falcons versus Patriots thing. That's hilarious. And one icon said the app was for on the go. Yeah, nobody ever said that it was for anything else other than that. Nobody said that. And somebody mentioned that is lackluster journalism, but it's also a problem of people. This is a societal thing, because this lackluster journalism would be fixed pretty quickly, because they wouldn't be getting clicks. The site would get shut down. They would be bankrupt, and that would be it, because people would look at it and say, what kind of journalists are this? Fuck them and leave. And then as soon as that happens and they aren't getting clicks anymore, they're done. But people don't do that anymore. This is the broken information age, I guess. Broken information. You don't care if it's broken. You just want it. Let's get it now. Let's get it now. Let's get it now. I want to know now. I want to know now. I don't care if it's true or false. I want it now. And since most people have that mentality, these people succeed. They're continuing to succeed by not doing their job, which is to write accurate information, to provide a service to the people, which is the reason why they have press badges. Keyword press. We want information. We want accurate information. So, and somebody just popped up and asked about the Foxconn leak. And the only reason, originally, I doubted the Foxconn leak. Then I noticed that they were the only people that mentioned SR and SL being on the inside of the controllers. In addition to saying that the controllers were the major cost of the system, not even the tablet screen or any other kind of stuff. The major cost of the system was the controllers, and with the rumble features and stuff like that, along with the original whole we can capture and see hands and stuff like that. All that stuff was from the original Foxconn leak. And the original Foxconn leak really was confirmed by Semi-Accurate back in March or May. I believe it was May, which was a good 6 weeks before a good 6 weeks before Laura Kate Dell and Emily Rogers decided to say that Nintendo is going Tegra. Semi-Accurate, yeah, look it up. Semi-Accurate posted it. It was a private post, but then if you go back to the post that they just put out in December, they referenced the post that they made back then in the early summer that they were talking about. Somebody said I got shut down by IGN. But yeah, the Foxconn leak was well before Emily Rogers and them. So yeah, it's the Falcons jersey. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, the Foxconn leak is legit. It's super legit. It's the closest I've ever seen to any type of leak, and obviously the stuff is being manufactured by Foxconn because China is one of the major exports of the Nintendo Switch. That's also in the patents. Um, some of the power regulations and stuff like that had to be registered in China, which is another hint, as well as Japan and the US or whatever. And you stopped at Laura K. Dale and Ryder side. Yeah, so they cited, they basically came up with this 6 weeks later, and then Eurogamer posted it and used them as sources. And yeah, there you have it. And now we have these people coming out with all these posts and stuff, and nobody looked at their real track records and saw Emily Rogers talking about Mother 3 for about 2 years, and it never really happened. But yeah, the Foxconn leak is pretty accurate. So you're looking at possibly close to a teraflop of performance if somehow Nintendo decided to cram in 512 CUDA cores into this thing instead of 256. So you're either at a little bit over half a teraflop or right at a teraflop. If all things are being considered. Bellhugger, what's going on, man? You need to come on my podcast sometimes. But anyway, yeah. So we're talking about something pretty close to that, and whether it's Pascal or not really doesn't matter because Pascal and Maxwell are essentially the same. So Pascal didn't exist on the flowcharts. It was never on the plan for NVIDIA to move forward with their Tegra models. Pascal was never there. It was never there on any of their desktop flagship GPUs either. Maxwell did so well as far as performance when it came out that NVIDIA went ahead and did what they needed to do. They basically went back and re-engineered it so it was power efficient. And once they did that, that's when they renamed it Pascal, and they're far more silicon on the board, transistors on the board to facilitate just that power consumption. There's some other, like there's more registers per block and stuff like that on there, but a lot of those registers are literally for power consumption. So if it is Pascal, I mean, that's great, but I don't think that's going to be a big driver to performance. It'd be more the raw numbers that would give you that performance. But I mean, we don't really need it anyway, because look what Nintendo does with quote unquote limited subpar stuff. Mario Kart 8 was beautiful. That's probably the best use of global illumination I've ever seen in any game in real time. So to quote Reggie to quote the picture beside Reggie in the YouTube video he did with I think Pro Jared, do you even ray trace? I guess is the question, because that should be the next standard. Should be ray tracing, real time ray tracing, and people have been trying to do it in different iterations on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and obviously they were not successful with that. No, Pascal is not double the CUDA cores, if that's what one might call is thinking. It's not. But if Nintendo decided to make it double the CUDA cores, it would basically mean that the entire SoC would be twice the size. The rumor or the leak says this is 100 millimeters squared, but there's another edition there that's 200 millimeters squared. So that could be therein what we're looking at there. They in the leak, it was mentioned as if that was a pro version or a developer version or something to that effect, but we don't know what exactly shipped out the door. We're talking about a leak that's well over 8 months old now at this point. So a lot of things could have changed in that time before they decide to go live with production as of probably last month. So that being said, I'm pretty much done on the power bandwagon thing. The people that decide to talk about it, and I'm not going to speak ill of other YouTubers. There's other people out there. Like people like to follow Dave and Spawn and a couple of people. They make multiple videos a day, and they talk about specs pretty much every other day for the most part. And I'm not really sure what their background is on any of that stuff, other than maybe they were PC gamers at some point, so they understand a couple of things here or there. Maybe they have a professional background in it. I'm not going to delve into it or ask or anything like that, but I just feel that you guys, you watch what you watch, and if that's what you like, then great. I do think that there needs to be there needs to be some questioning though with regards to a lot of, I would say, even more famous YouTubers or even, the press at large or whatever, um, when they say certain things or they assume certain things. I'm not going to make any of those assumptions until I get some data. I'm not going to do it. Uh, I remember at one point in time, somebody told me there was no way that the Wii U could scale its own clocks internally. And I'm like, every computer does that. Why wouldn't this one? That doesn't make any sense. There's a completely different SoC inside this system to manage the functions of it. Why wouldn't it be able to clock up and down? And you'll just play some games, play some Batman, play some Smash Brothers, um, play some Darksiders, and just load up a crazy scene with a lot of stuff going on, and your Wii U will get loud, which means that more power draw is happening, the fans are kicking in, the system's getting hotter. Um, More shaders are being activated possibly at that point, or maybe they're doing more calculations per second or whatever. But obviously, the CPU and the GPU are not running at the core clock speed they normally do when you first turn it on. So that being said, I'll mention the one thing that was true out of the Forbes article. It would appear to be a pretty powerful machine for the size, which is, to me, I why nobody ever says this is beyond me. Like, the whole point is to compare it to Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And why would you want to do that? Do you want another Xbox One or another PlayStation 4? If you do, then go buy one. They're fairly cheap right now, and you can get games with them and everything because they've been on the market since 2013 and they can't sell them any other way. So why not? Go get your Xbox One S or whatever and go from there. There's no reason for you to want to buy a Nintendo Switch and then force it to be an Xbox. You buy a Nintendo Switch because you want to play Zelda, you want to play Mario, you want to eventually play Metroid, F-Zero, and all those other type games. If you want those games, buy that platform, period. I own just about every platform on demand because I want to play all those games. I want to play all the PC games. I want to play the MMOs. I want to play Uncharted, and I want to play Sunset Overdrive. So I buy those systems, and It might be IGN at this point. I have no idea. It might just be IGN. This is ironic. I've never had stream issues like this before. But for whatever reason, in this stream, I'm having the most issues ever. I've done complete podcasts like this. I'll tell you what. I'll kill the video. Sorry, I'll kill the video, and we'll see what happens from here. Yeah. So I want to play games on all those platforms, and I just don't understand why, if we moved to these new platforms because they were supposed to quote unquote give us a better experience with regards to gaming, why is that experience still lackluster? Why do I still have invisible walls, and why do I still have frame rates in the 20s? What was the point of making the hardware more powerful if all you were going to do was make the textures higher quality and this upscale the game to 1080p? I could upscale the game to 1080p with my receiver, or my TV could upscale it. There's no reason for me to buy this version of this game. Yes, I did buy the version of that game, and I regret it gratefully. There's no reason for me to buy that version of Grand Theft Auto if I'm going to still see the issues that I saw on the Xbox 360. There's no reason for me to have the same frame rate issues across generationally different platforms. There's no reason. And yes, those issues exist on the PC too. And that just, all that does is confirm the problem that we're having. And nobody wants to talk about those developer issues. But like I said before, let a Nintendo game dip into the teens on frame rate and everybody's crying. Everybody has a problem. Oh, Nintendo sucks. They blah, 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 blah. I'm like, but you should be used to it, right? You spend $60 all the time and you buy all this DLC. You buy the season pass, even though they don't give you no DLC for the season pass. And you deal with frame rates in the teens. Then you go online and deal with frame rates in the single digits. And but it's in 1080p though. You're watching your 3 frames per second in 1080p, so that's acceptable. And I'm not saying this as if I haven't experienced it. It's there. And it does exist on PC, like I said before, but a lot fewer and far between. It's usually going to be a developer issue, driver issues, and stuff like that, and they get fixed down the line, or the vendor, the GPU vendor will fix it. So I just, to me, Weapon Wheel Podcast Academy. I don't even know. I don't even watch those guys. I have no idea who they are. Somebody explain it to me. I think I may have heard about it before, but no, that's just odd to me. But either way, if there's no reason to go to Nintendo hardware expecting them to do Xbox things and PlayStation things, if Nintendo knows what the impact of that is going to be. Reggie already mentioned it on the Pro Jared stream. I encourage everybody to watch the Pro Jared versus Reggie debate and listen to the things that he said. Yes, Nintendo could just say, hey, our new next platform, let's see the most powerful graphics card we can throw in it. What's the point if you can't control it? What's the point if it's too hot? What's the point if there are bugs everywhere when you combine it with the CPU that you're also putting in the system? What's the point of that? Once Nintendo irons out certain things and they get things to work because they think about games in a different way, then they make it ironclad. Then they make it damn near bulletproof. Then they make it where it can do things like, apparently, according to this Foxconn leak, it's running obviously 2 million something objects on screen or whatever at a time, and they let it run for 4 or 5 hours. I don't know about you, but I think my PlayStation's about to shut off half the time when I'm playing certain games. Like, I'll sit there and play, and I'm like, wow, that sounds really hot and loud. And, as a launch model. But it just seems like consoles aren't made the same anymore. You can't just stick a game in and go. Now you stick a game in, go make a sandwich, and then maybe you'll be able to go before the next load screen. And that's a little bit of ranting, but oh, you said Weapon Wheel Podcast is Broken Games HD, Black Bond, Hard 8, and okay, that's fine. Yeah, they probably do keep cutting me. I wouldn't be surprised to me. Yeah, Black Bond apparently thinks he owned me on Twitter of all places, where you can only make like 35 characters at a time. Somehow he made a very serious argument about where VRAM is. I guess he claimed that it didn't exist on PCs or something like that in the earlier PCs, and the dude obviously hasn't been around hardware before the N64, because obviously he was PC gaming after Nintendo hurt his heart, I guess. But whatever. I don't even really care about that. My issue was the brigand brigade of people that stop and swap news articles and come up with their own conclusions, jump to their own conclusions, and then they take those same jump conclusions and try to spread them to other people like it's wisdom. What are you doing? What exactly are you doing? And then here I come along like, hey, where you get this information from? Oh, you're a fanboy. You don't know nothing. I'm going to not reply to you again. Great. Works for me. Next. So Nintendo could always just sell a boutique external storage card for a ridiculous amount of money. That works well. I guess they were talking about the Vita at that point. No, they're not doing that. They're leaving that to third-party sellers who actually sell them pretty cheap. 128-bit cards for less than $80, and you're good to go. That pretty much solves that. So I guess at this point, if there are any questions for me, I can address those. Other than that, I'll end the stream a little bit before I make a final statement. And that final statement kind of involves just about everybody. So I'm thinking Xbox giving all their library away for free. Yeah, got to get people over there. No Dolphins fans. Yep. And a lot of back and forth. PSVR price. yeah, that's a lot of money, and nobody seems to talk about that. Here's the deal. If the Nintendo Switch charging dock is expensive to you, and you buy an Xbox One, then the additional $20 to $30 for the charge and play kit for that platform should also be expensive to you. So you have the rechargeable battery for it. And that's only one controller. Meanwhile, that Switch dock charges two at one time. So, whatever, that little thing or whatever, the charging cradle charges two at a time. If the Nintendo Switch dock as a whole is expensive to you for $90, then buying 2 or 3 Xbox Ones or PlayStation 4s at launch price, $400 and $500 respectively, because we're comparing this against the launch prices of other platforms, right? Because this is a launch price. We're not talking about the future price of the Switch when it's eventually going to be cheaper, right? It's only fair. Then that, we should compare the $1,500 it would cost to buy a launch day Xbox One to have in every room of your house or whatever, so you can play in all those different rooms. So it'll be just as mobile as the Nintendo Switch. We can compare that, right? So you spend, $90 here, $90 there. You spend $180 plus the $300 of the Nintendo Switch, as they want to add everything together. So that's $480 to play in 3 rooms of your house with a Nintendo Switch, right? Versus $1,500 for the Xbox One at launch. Versus $1,200 for the PlayStation 4 at launch. Nobody wants to line these comparisons up the way they're supposed to. Nobody does. Which is just odd to me. somebody mentioned something about the 4G switch model, or was that debunked? Not really sure about the Foxconn 4G leak. I don't know if that was a mistranslation, or I do know that there are radio frequencies that were applied for that were eventually dropped in the patent. So there's several patents there, and then there's some that were dropped and some that were pushed through and were approved. So we don't know exactly what they went through for the U.S. or China or Japan, as far as I know. I'll have to do a little bit more reading on that, but I do remember that being talked about at some point. And but somebody else mentioned it too. There was another leak talking about the 4G or whatever, and they weren't using Foxconn as a source, at least not to my knowledge. And it wasn't LTE; it was just straight up 4G. I think is what they were talking about. So, but anyways, yeah. So what do you guys think about the Nintendo Switch? It's been a while. I haven't really talked about what my impressions were versus everybody else. But what I saw obviously fits what I want to do, because I like the Wii U, because I was able to do the adult things that that Review Tech USA is just now talking about, which makes me feel greatly senior to him, because my kids are way older, and I see that need where I don't have to take up the TV, or if Mrs. Shadow Fox wants to spend the quality time, and she wants to watch whatever show she's watching, and she wants me to sit with her, I'm able to take that system with me and play it. Versus being stuck in front of a TV and looking like a mongoloid, staring at a screen or whatever. I can kind of do it casually in my bed or on the couch or wherever else. So that's kind of where I see that, and that was the same thing that I did with the Wii U. So yeah, I'm obviously I'm pumped about that. That entire aspect works for me. I'm a fan of motion control. I was pretty good at Skyward Sword. That game was pretty awesome. I like that. So to me, that doesn't put me off, and I don't think it would anyway, because it's not like they take the core gaming away. Look at the Nintendo Switch when you put it together. That is everything that you need is there, short of analog triggers and whoop-de-doo about analog triggers. Maybe some of you racing fans out there that don't have a wheel wanted that, and wheel and pedal or whatever. I I was never a fan of those type of racing games. Anyway, I kind of like racing or arcade racing games, but I guess that's just my preference. Other than that, though, all the other features look pretty good. The performance looks sound. I like the controller layout. Um, Personally, I got used to the analog sticks being parallel to each other from the Wii U Pro controller. Personally, I think that was one of the best controllers ever created. Um, but and the whole local multiplayer thing that Health and Fitness is Otaku Health and Fitness is talking about in the chat is one of the things that I welcome back, and I'm kind of wondering why that didn't happen much with the Wii U. Um, but it's great that you're able to do it now with anywhere. You don't have to be limited to, hey, let's get multiple Wii U's in one room. Like who's gonna do that? So, but the local multiplayer that Wii U had was asymmetrical. So grab a Wii remote or Pro controller, and somebody's got the gamepad, and we all kind of have a different experience. Which was, I just hope at some point in the future, the asymmetric or the multiple views on Nintendo Switch becomes enabled at some point. I really hope the supplemental computing device does release. And the reason why I say that is because then it will really be a Wii U at that point. You would be able to play your game without docking the system, and the system itself will be the touchscreen that you need for your games, like playing. And while the Wii U was great for a map in a lot of games like Xenoblade and stuff like that, it would be great if you had a map that you could actively zoom in and out of by pinching the screen. That would be one of the things that would be great. And I think if somehow Nintendo figures out a way to do that within the next couple of years, I think that would be a good way for them to go going forward. So other than that, I'm enjoying the haters. I'm enjoying the haters talking about, oh, it won't play games like The Witcher 3 and stuff like that. And then go watch stuff like the old Tegra before the Tegra X X1 running Witcher 3 just fine. So I don't think there's going to be an issue. I think that developers that make games, if this thing is a success like it's going to be, the technology won't matter at that point. They're going to do whatever they can to fit those games on there because they'll know that there'll be mass appeal at this point. And with Nintendo spreading out their advertising and talking about different audiences, like having the kids and the adults and the teens all playing under the same roof and doing different things with the same console, this is the NES all over again. This is literally the NES all over again. It's an unassuming device that is entertainment and guilty pleasures for everybody. If you want to play your Just Dance game with the family, you can do that. If you want to play the hardcore game by yourself, you can do that. And you can do that on the go or in front of a TV. So you could be a Madden jock, I guess, at that point, because I think EA is eventually they're gonna cave and announce Madden for this thing at some point. Whenever the new version of Madden is ready to be announced, I guess maybe late April or May, they announce covers, I guess. So we'll see at that point. And I haven't seen docs on sale anywhere. I haven't seen it at all. So anyway, yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to leave you guys with a little statement here. If you want to take a dumping game, go ahead. I did that with Wii U. It was great. This is what I want to address everybody with here. And before I do this, I'm going to go here. I really hate to do it visually like this, but play your games. Don't let other people influence you. And the short-sighted excuses that they use to talk about whatever your preference is for you to have fun, that's a childish endeavor in itself. No adult will want to complain about somebody else doing what they do for entertainment. Nobody's going to say, "Hey, you won that chess game there, or you over here at the slot machine. Why are you having fun? That's childish. Why are you watching that football game? That's childish. It's entertainment. It's for fun." And with that being said, those same people are watching Disney movies, Disney cartoons, animated films without fail. They're watching childhood memories like Star Wars and things like I don't know, Robotech, stuff that they obviously experienced in their childhood. They're trying to see that stuff again, but not Nintendo, though. They're too old for that. Right. Do you play games to have fun or to impress other people? We out.